Did you guys find yourself out at any kind of a protest over the weekend downtown or at the Tesla dealer on State Line Road? Because, man, they were popping over the weekend.
Well, there was all kinds of things to go to, but like last time I found myself with nothing to wear, so I just stayed home, avoided it all.
How about you there, Mark?
I was with the Sporting KC supporters group protesting Peter Vermees and his terrible season.
So that's the protest that you were at. Well, I did not partake either, but apparently hundreds of people at these two protests across Kansas City over the weekend. 6:05, good morning. It is great to have you here on KCMO, kicking off another Monday. So let's start downtown, where there were protests to March for Democracy. Like we've never heard that one before. The March for Democracy, seemingly every time there's a Republican in charge, there's a March for Democracy. But then when Joe Biden is telling the Supreme Court to basically pound sand, no one's the same people are magically not marching for democracy. I can't quite figure that one out. But here we are. Over the weekend, protests downtown. Here was KCTV5's report.
One Army veteran traveled from Illinois to join what they called a March for Democracy.
I want them to restore the services that the vets need and the money to these services so our vets can get the health care, the mental health care that they deserve. We put it on the line for them. Now they need to come through for us.
The country feels like it's going into a spiral down. So many people fired, so many people hurt.
So first off, I would ask that first guy who was talking to KCTV5, what services have been dropped off that you want to see restored? I would say Republicans certainly agree that we need to take care of our veterans, right? I mean, that's like kind of been a tenet for the Republican Party for a very long time. They're not out there looking to cut benefits to veterans. They might make a mistake or two in their DOGE cuts, but any cut that's going to come to a veteran service is going to be restored immediately. It's just a talking point is all that is. And then you hear that second person downtown. Oh, I just feel like our country's, it's spiraling, man. Oh, the cuts. Well, here's what we actually have numbers-wise on the cuts. It's about 2.7 million federal employees. And thus far, I'm reading this from March 28th, Friday, from the New York Times. The confirmed cuts thus far have been 49,110. That's the number. Okay? And that may also include people who left their jobs willingly, who were put on a temporary leave. Some, yes, have been fired. Some of them are jobs that were just opened, never filled, that they said, we're taking this one off the table. So look at that. That is about 1.8% thus far of the workforce that has had some impact in some small way, shape, or form. And they act like, half the federal workforce is sitting out on the streets looking for a job. We're talking about less than 2%. Those are the numbers, and that's the thing. These protesters never have numbers. They just have feelings. And as Ben Shapiro, our longtime friend here on KCMO Talk Radio, has infamously said, facts do not care about your feelings. They don't, they never will. And it's funny because I watched all the local news packages on these protests and rallies over the weekend, and they were filled with feelings and short on facts. The Kansas City Star wrote about this over the weekend, and here's what they write. Their headline, "This is what democracy looks like. Thousands protest Trump administration at KC March." They open up the piece here, writing, "Thousands gathered to march for democracy in downtown Kansas City on Saturday, voicing concerns about what several marchers called an overreach by the federal government on citizens' rights. Furrowed brows, smiles, shouts, and tears occupied the faces of passionate protesters who bellowed chants that echoed off the concrete sky-rise buildings." Are you kidding me? What is this, the opening of a William Faulkner overwritten novel here? Oh, my gosh. The faces of passionate protesters whose tears bellowed chants that echoed off the concrete sky-rise buildings that were also, spattered with blood from the night before from homicides all over the place. Like, what are we doing here? The over-dramatization of the way this is being described with a handful of angry people who just want to see the government balloon into oblivion, who just want to dive headfirst off the fiscal cliff. They're not serious people. They're not. Because anybody who's been paying attention to where the federal government is at right now, anybody who's been looking at this and had some type of ability to strip out the partisan politics knows what DOGE is doing actually needs to be done, like desperately needs to be done. And it's not one of those things that you can say is Republican versus Democrat. If you care about the country, you have to then care about this. I know the media has built this up as Democrat versus Republican, but it's really not. What's your answer in the solving $36 trillion in debt? What's your answer to a $2.5 trillion annual deficit? And don't tell me Elon Musk has to pay more in taxes. Once again, facts don't care about your feelings, and the math doesn't work. So you tell me what you're doing. You tell me what your plan is. You want to look at the Defense Department? I will gladly look at that too. I guarantee you there's waste there as well. I'm happy to do that. I'll give you that. Democrats have been wanting to cut the Pentagon, or at least parts of it, for a long time. I'll give you that. Let's find some waste in the Pentagon. I'm happy to give you that. I'm happy to have that conversation. What are you going to give me? What are you going to give those of us who say this problem is so big? If you care about the future of the country and you truly want to march for democracy, you should be in part marching for this. But of course, that's not the name of the game that they're playing. Any dollar that is cut to the federal government, the world is ending. The country can't survive. That's basically the approach that they've taken here. And frankly, I know they're trying to drum up enthusiasm for their base, but I don't think this is working or will work with the people that they need to win back over. Tim is in Kansas City. He's on KCMO. Tim, good morning. What's happening, buddy?
Hey, I just wanted to comment on the protests about that one guy that said he was from the military and that I'm a veteran. I go to the VA here in Kansas City. They haven't cut anything. I mean, I can still go see my psych, and I can go see my regular doctor, and I don't know what the deal is. I got a feeling maybe that guy was just another paid person to say he was in the military or something, or a guy who doesn't even use it.
Yeah, and I think that was the guy they talked about who came from Illinois to Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm sure there's protests in Illinois, too. So,
yes. Yeah, I'm sure there's a few of those in the Chicago area he could have gone to, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
You know, and I would like to see DOGE come to Kansas City, really. So, yeah, I work at the airport, and there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on with money and everything else. So I'd like to get to the bottom of it at Kansas City, Missouri.
Well, we got to get the right people in charge to do it, Tim. Thanks for your service, man. Thanks for the call.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, let's go to Jeff. What's up? He's in Kansas City. Hey, Jeff.
Good morning. You know, the thing is, like your Planned Parenthood and all these outfits that get money from the federal government, they loop a lot of it back to the Democrat Party for their political contributions, their PACs, and all those things. And there's a lot of payback. It's kind of like a mob-run deal. Mm-hmm. They're always going to give them their vig on the back side of it to make sure that they keep getting funded on the front side. But, it's a game. But the other thing is you guys did a package on it the other day, I think, where you were talking about Obama was covering he was talking about making all these cuts, and then all of a sudden the Democrat stronghold, the old line, didn't want him making any of those cuts, and they put the kibosh on it. I think you talked about it the other morning, like Thursday, and you guys went into great detail about it, and that was something I'd kind of forgotten, but it's true. If you don't get to the bottom of this now, it's just going to get worse, and it's like death by 1,000 cuts, except it's worse.
Well, it's cutting off. It's cutting off. You're right, Jeff. It's cutting off the hand that feeds them, and that's what they're scared to death of. These NGOs, these nonprofit organizations, many of which get funded through the federal government, or at least a portion funded through the federal government. They do not want anybody like Doge looking under the hood of the car. They want no part of that, because they know there's a lot that the American people are going to find out about, that they're going to say, I've been funding what? And, I don't have the evidence that there's paid protesters all over these rallies in the Tesla dealership in downtown on Saturday. But I'll tell you right now, it feels very, very fabricated and very, very forced. Coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio, there is one thing that keeps getting floated out there from the president where I'm saying to myself, why this and why now? I'll tell you what that is next on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio. So we just goofed and spent a lot of time, mocking this bizarre March for Democracy in downtown Kansas City over the weekend. But I will say this much. Trump should not give them any ammunition. The president of the United States does not need to be telling Kristen Welker of NBC's Meet the Press that, he's not joking around about a potential third term. Don't do it. Don't give them the ammunition where they can say, see, he's going for the dictator spot. He doesn't care about the country. We must march for democracy because this man is not satisfied serving 2 terms. I would just say don't do it. So this came over the weekend. NBC's Kristen Welker had a phone call with the president yesterday, and he told her, a lot of people want me to do it, meaning run for a third term. Trump claimed that there are methods which you could do it, including having J.D. Vance run for president with Trump as his VP, and then J.D. would resign to allow Trump to be back in the top job. Oh, my gosh. JD, you didn't know what you signed up for, bro. Oh, man. See, it's like I'm just sitting here laughing at it because it's so bizarre. But here's what it does. It will actually drum up wild enthusiasm within the Democratic base. And if you're Trump and you're trying to have a super successful 4 years here to close out your time in the White House, you don't want to give them ammunition for their base to then win back the House in 2026 and basically try to stop you at every turn during your final 2 years in office, which could be a historic term in office if you can accomplish a lot of what you're trying to accomplish, John.
He's a little ahead of schedule, isn't he? This is maybe a third-year type comment.
Yes.
Going into the third and fourth year.
This is a January of 27 conversation, okay? This is not a March of 25 conversation with NBC's Kristen Welker of Meet the Press, who's going to do you absolutely no favors. Like, this is not – if you want to give Democrats a reason to be enthused going into the midterms next year, and they've got an 18-month runway to do that, start talking about running for a third term. That'll get them juiced up. So, like, this came up a couple of months ago, and it was largely viewed as just trolling. Trump just kind of trolling his, early days in office, saying, yeah, who knows, I might do it again. And I also understand why he doesn't want to be quickly perceived as a lame duck. But it doesn't matter if you're perceived as a lame duck if you have the House and the Senate on your side, right? It's only when the other party has power in the House or the Senate where you being a lame duck can impact your ability to get things done, mostly speaking, because Trump has such high approvals within the Republican Party. So what do you have to do? You have to maintain your party's power in the House, and the Senate's less of a concern in 26 just based on how the seats and the open seats are kind of made up right now. Senate's most likely, barring some kind of disaster, is going to stay in Republican hands. You know, you got Roger Marshall here in Kansas up. I think he's the only local one that's going to be up in 26 is Roger Marshall. And he's, barring something unforeseen, going to be safe. And Roger Marshall also is going to be on the show this morning at 8 o'clock. So look forward to that conversation coming up in about 90 minutes. But the House is where you say, okay, Sharice Davids in Kansas safe, Emmanuel Cleaver, you know, the musty moo-moo himself. He's basically set for life in that seat. Sharice Davids getting close to that point as well. But Democrats only have to win over 2 or 3 seats to win back the House of Representatives. Trump does not need to be sitting there saying, you know what, let me give these guys some juice. Let me tell them how I might run for a 3rd term and give that news story to NBC's Kristen Welker, of all people. Like, what are we doing here on that front? Why? What's the point of that? 913-408-7957. That's how you join us on KCMO. Let's go to Stephen in Kansas City. What's up, Stephen?
Pete, when I have breaking news, the first person I will contact is Kirsten Welker.
Oh, that's great.
You gotta love it. I mean, I agree with you. The best part is that it doesn't seem to be affecting anything. That the polls, according to Breitbart, the polls are still holding the exact same level of support, no matter what he says. I think it's sort of baked in the cake. It's locked in. Even the Musk thing is having no effect. So, I mean, that's a good thing. But like you said, you don't want complete unforced errors. I mean, it's funny to us. I mean, it's hilarious to us, but it probably doesn't look great to doesn't look great on the whole. But that's what kind of makes you love the guy, because you know, sometimes he just can't help himself. He can't help himself to just kind of needle the idiots over at NBC and Meet the Press. I mean, that's what.
Well, they've got their storylines set up for the entire week now, right? I mean, they're good to go.
Right.
They've got the easiest job in America now.
It feels like it's worth it sometimes, but it may not be worth it in the like you said, for the whole week to have them say all that stuff.
No, thank you, Stephen. Have a good week, buddy.
Right.
It's just it'll make us chuckle. It's fine for talk radio, but it's really not worth it at all politically. So let's skip out on that. Now, speaking of politically, something happened in an apolitical moment that turned political. We'll tell you about next. Well, it has been a news-making few weeks for Saturday Night Live. I will give them that much. Over the weekend, Morgan Wallen was there as one of the co-hosts, and he caused some controversy that to me was much to do about absolutely nothing. So Morgan Wallen wraps up Saturday Night Live, and I guess as is par for the course, he gives his little co-host there a hug, and then he just walks off the stage towards the camera with the entire cast behind him. Here's, you got to see it really, but here's just 10 seconds of what it sounded like.
Thank you so much to Morgan Wallen. I had a wonderful time. Thank you all.
And then, everyone's on stage kind of hugging and waving, and he walks off stage towards the camera and just pieces out. See you later. Now, his people are saying that this is just a misunderstanding. They said that this was the way that he entered and exited the studio all week long during rehearsals. So he just walked off the stage after giving his co-host, Mikey Madison, a hug and just said, all right, see you later. Now, what added fuel to this fire was he put up an Instagram story a couple hours later of his private jet that said, "Get me to God's country." Of course, leaving New York City, picture of his jet saying, basically, get me the hell out of here as quickly as you can. Yeah. Exactly. A big old GTFO for Morgan Wallen.
To the Big Apple.
Yeah. So I'm not sure I believe this. Well, it was just an innocent misunderstanding of exiting the stage. I do think a part of him was maybe trying to send a message of like, man, get me out of this place. But it was some cause for controversy over the weekend. Now, you may recall Morgan Wallen was invited a few years ago to do Saturday Night Live. But what happened is this was in October of 2020, 7 months into the pandemic. He was asked to be the musical guest on an episode of SNL. But days before he was scheduled to perform, footage went viral across social media, showing Morgan Wallen not wearing a COVID mask at an Alabama football game and celebrating with women at a bar afterwards. People who supported masks and social distancing during the pandemic were outraged. He was then removed from the scheduled SNL appearance. And he apologized in a video later on that was shared online. So I don't know why he returned. Like, I get it. He's got a new album coming out. And even though SNL doesn't have the pull and the reach that it used to have, it's still good attention for anybody looking to promote a new album. But it felt like a guy who was just there because his managers were like, you should probably do this. And he's like, fine, I'll do it. But I'm getting the heck out of there as quickly as I can, John.
I think it was mutually beneficial. I think SNL needs some controversy.
Yeah.
They need a little bit of America watching the show again.
Yes.
But I'm like Morgan, hey, that's the way I went out every day. Now, they didn't say that they yelled at him every day. Don't do that.
Yeah,
when
that's
it comes
true.
to the show, they didn't say he wasn't reprimanded. He just said he did it that way every day. And so, to your point, there may have been a message there, but they both need each other.
Well, I would agree, and that's an excellent point. Like, SNL needs more of Americana watching that show, and Morgan Wallen benefits by getting his music out in front of an audience that may not otherwise watch his stuff. And the controversy benefits both sides here. But I'm still Team Morgan.
I'll take earned media for 20 here because we're talking about it today.
That's so true.
But we're going, yeah, go Morgan.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, he also ended his song, which should not be controversial at all. But, of course, some people were freaking out because he said the word God during his performance over the weekend.
Praise the Lord and go Vols, baby.
Praise the Lord and go Vols. Now, of course, the Vols, the Volunteers, lost to Houston. The Vols, they might have stayed up late watching SNL on Saturday.
Maybe that's it.
Because they got crushed by the Houston Cougars in that Elite Eight matchup yesterday. They were down 29-8 at one point. The Volunteers set an NCAA tournament record, for the fewest points scored in any NCAA tournament game by a number 1 or a number 2 seed in the first half, with only 15 points.
I couldn't believe that. I looked at the score and I was like, this is unbelievable.
I mean, this was a team that was one of the best offensive teams in the country all season. They couldn't buy a bucket. So they clearly did not get Morgan Wallen's message from Saturday night on SNL, where he's like, praise the Lord and go Vols. It's like, yeah, they didn't show up for you yesterday, man. They got smoked in the Elite Eight. So that was kind of, from a Morgan Wallen perspective, a disappointing weekend. He goes on SNL. He's somewhat controversial, and then his Vols get blown out on Sunday. Now, speaking of God, back here in Kansas, 4 people were arrested after a satanic ritual turned violent at the Kansas State House on Friday. The Kansas Highway Patrol said that satanic grotto leader Michael Stewart, 42 years old, along with 3 others, were taken into custody. One of those arrested includes a 21-year-old man who got into a heated fight with Stewart on the first floor of the Capitol Rotunda. So there was video of Stewart being arrested. He made his way into the Capitol building to recite prayers to Satan, despite warnings from state officials and police. The 21-year-old man attempted to snatch the ritual documents out of Stewart's hands. The fight escalated, and Stewart threw a punch at the man. Both Stewart and the man were arrested for disorderly conduct. The Kansas Highway Patrol said the other 2 people followed Stewart into the State House and were arrested for unlawful assembly. Now, this guy Stewart, this satanic leader, was out of jail on Friday night. So we are going to have on Susan Humphreys. She's a member of the Kansas legislature at 8:30. She was there watching this bizarre Kansas black mass that took place at the State House on Friday late morning, early afternoon, to give us some insight into what exactly happened and how this went down. But this was about 11:30 on Friday morning. Satanic Grotto founder Michael Stewart made his way to the security checkpoint at the visitors' entrance on the north side of the State House. He was entering, he said, as a private citizen, but not to perform any activities associated with the event. So this guy shows up, he sponsors this black mass Friday morning, and then ends up getting detained. The good news is there were hundreds of individuals representing Christian groups who also entered the State House at about the same time and could be heard reciting the Hail Mary. And from what I could tell in seeing some of the social media clips on Friday morning, early afternoon, there actually were far more Christians there to combat the satanic black mass than there were Satanists. So that is a great sign, and I think in the end, that makes this state and this community look really good. But Susan Humphreys was there at Ground Zero on Friday, and she is going to be joining us coming up later this morning at 8:30 on KCMO Talk Radio. In the meantime, 1 hour from now, we will have tickets to meet Dave Ramsey here on KCMO. Dave Ramsey is coming to Kansas City with Dr. John Deloney for their Money and Marriage event. That is on May 9th at the Music Hall here in Kansas City. And we are giving away tickets all week long at 7:45 on our show and at 10:45 with Kevin Keatsman. And two of our winners this week will also win VIP meet and greet tickets with Dave Ramsey and Dr. John Deloney before the event on May 9th. So your first chance to win this week is 1 hour from now at 7:45. Set the alarm here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Now, we got a new poll that came out. This is in the wake of course, Saturday's protests at Tesla dealerships, including here in Kansas City. You had the March for Democracy downtown as well on Saturday. So marching left and right. Marching. But then the polling comes out. And the polling tells a very different story from what you hear at the marches and the rallies and what the media tells you is actually going on in this country that may not entirely be true, including right here in Kansas City. While Emmanuel Cleaver is going bonkers, screaming his face off at different events, last week he was pounding the podium on behalf of the post office because, of course, everybody loves the post office, said nobody ever. Well, CBS News drops a poll. Donald Trump's approval rating is sitting at what? 50%, 50. Trump's overall job approval numbers in a March 27th, 28th poll from CBS News and YouGov. Not exactly an organization looking to give the President of the United States the benefit of the doubt. 2 months of Doge is going to kill us all. We need the post office. We need 600,000 employees. No ifs, ands, or buts. If you don't want a fully funded post office, you hate America. I guess it's not working all that well.
Huh.
That's the only conclusion I can come to in here reading this.
Maybe we all have our own lived experience to compare it to, huh? We all have that package floating around the universe somewhere.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, what is Trump most popular on? His immigration policy is actually his most popular policy right now. The Trump administration's program to deport immigrants illegally in the U.S. 58% approve, 42% disapprove. Well, that's certainly not in touch with where, the protesting crowd and the media would tell you things should be right now. That's a little bit out of sorts as well with what you would think based on the media portrayal of these topics. So Trump's handling of immigration in general, above water, 53 to 47, actually better than his handling of the economy, which is 48 approve, 52 disapprove. And Trump's handling on inflation, 44% approve, 56% disapprove. That's why he's really rolling the dice right now with these tariffs this week. He's got positive approval on the immigration issue. His overall approval is at 50%, which for, a guy that historically did not reach that number during his first term in office, you got to look at that and say that's pretty good. The tariffs, depending on how they play out, and I understand what he's going for. Like, we all understand what he's basically saying is we need reciprocal tariffs or no tariffs at all. In a perfect world, no one's got a tariff on us, and we don't have a tariff on anybody else. His point is, if you're going to charge us for our goods coming to your country, why are we not charging you the same for your goods coming into our country when we are the world's largest consumer? I get what he's going for. I do. I see the game plan here. I understand it. But at a time when people already are concerned about higher prices based on the last 4 years, there is a risk associated with all this. You heard Bill O'Reilly talk about it earlier in the hour. And, of course, the markets are a little jittery because of it. Now, overall, the S&P is down, 4.5%, 5% this year. And for most people invested in just S&P 500 funds, they're not, ebbing and flowing with this market like CNBC is or Fox Business is. They're just not. And for the Wall Street trader class, that's not who Donald Trump is appealing to here with these policies. But there is a little bit of a risk here. Maybe the tariffs could have waited. Maybe they should have, waited later in the year, next year, kind of feel like you're getting the economy at large back on track. You're cutting spending. That will reduce inflation. Once you feel like you've got inflation under control, then you say, hey, we're going ahead with these tariffs to try to get equal trade here between the U.S. and other countries. But you know what? We'll see how the week plays out.
Now, you got to balance that with that he's got only so much time here with the Congress and everything.
That's true. He's got a small window.
There's a certain amount of urgency here that maybe suggests that couldn't wait, even though that is the best idea.
Yeah. Although I will say, Congress isn't really involved with any of this.
So much.
They're just kind of sitting there on the sideline saying, sounds good. They're not really doing much. But here's what's interesting
about... Well, I guess
about...
they could obstruct, though, potentially.
Potentially.
Try to, anyway.
Yeah. Well,
and that's what they do. They just try to obstruct.
They try to, especially, of course, if you get Hakeem Jeffries back as the Speaker of the House. In this CBS News YouGov poll, who is most responsible for today's inflation rate? This is interesting. 38% say Joe Biden's policies. 34% say Donald Trump's policies. 19% say both equally, and 9% say neither. Who's the neither crowd? That's what I want to know. Who do you put into the 9% neither crowd?
Well, it's Putin.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So how you could possibly come to the conclusion that inflation on March 31st is the fault of a guy who showed up 65 days ago, 70 days ago, is mind-numbingly out of touch to me. That you could say that a guy who's been there for 2 months is more responsible for today's inflation than the guy who spent 4 years blowing out the budget and just printing money left and right, and then also trying to bail out student loans when the Supreme Court said he couldn't. I'm not quite sure how you come to that conclusion, but I understand that questions like this are oftentimes answered in a very partisan way. But still, you have more Americans who believe today's inflation is more a responsibility on the back of Joe Biden than it is of Donald Trump, which is the main takeaway here.
Perhaps members of those neither response are the perfect target for our David Ramsey giveaway.
Yeah.
Our Dave Ramsey giveaway here.
Yes.
Coming up in a minute.
Yeah, give it 3 minutes here on KCMO Talk Radio. And then you also have this coming out of the YouGov poll. And this is something that also Trump should be concerned about. Trump's policies are making you financially better off, worse off, the same. In January, 42% said that Trump's policies would make them better off. That number now is down to 23%. Worse off in January, 28%. Now it's 42%. The same, it was 30% in January. It's 35% now. So Trump has seen his numbers of Americans who believe his policies will make them better off financially cut in half. Trump won on the economy. He's got to realize that. And if people do not have confidence in him, making them better off economically, even if it's just a perception, it will not be good for his approval numbers or, as a result, the Republican Party in the months and potentially years ahead come 2026. And I know that that's a lifetime away. A lot can change. I'm just saying he's rolling the dice. And he better hope that it pays off, and it pays off in a big way. Well, we're happy to announce that we have arguably the biggest event in KCMO Talk Radio history, at least in my tenure. I won't speak to prior, but in my tenure, which we start year 8 of this show coming up on Wednesday, we are going to have Guy Benson, our afternoon host on KCMO, making the trip to Kansas City for an event that we are calling the first 147 of 47. You see what we did there. It'll be about 147 days of the Trump administration for number 47. It will be an event Thursday, June 12th at Boulevard, and it will include drinks, photo opportunity with Guy Benson, plated dinner. The program will run from about 7 to 8:30, and there will be a complimentary group of beers and wine and a take-home pint glass, and tickets will be going on sale later this week. So we will get you all the details. 7 a.m. Friday, they go on sale here on KCMO Talk Radio at our website, kcmotalkradio.com. So join us, Guy Benson. Don't worry, I'm going to twist Keatsman's arm to get him involved with this as well, which is not going to be hard. Kevin's he's a man of the people, man. He loves going out.
Yeah.
He wants to be out. He wants to have a good time. He's the one who helped us devise the watch party for the State of the Union, or not the State of the Union, the inauguration. So Kevin's always looking to do stuff like this and meet the folks. So I know he's going to be involved. But it will be Thursday, June 12th. And the tickets are not yet on sale, but they will be later this week. Guy Benson coming to Kansas City for what is going to be an exclusive KCMO Talk Radio event. Of course, I will be out there as well with him Thursday, June 12th. So mark the calendar, and the tickets will go on sale later this week. And it's going to be a smaller group. We're only going to have probably, we got room for a couple hundred people. So we're not going to blow this thing out. It will be pretty exclusive to hang out with Guy, meet him, get a photo, and the whole deal, John.
I've got plenty of time to find something to wear to this event.
Yes,
so
yes.
I missed all the protests.
Yes. You will have about 2.5 months to figure out what you want to wear.
I'm thinking chic but modest since it's Guy, something like that.
Yeah, I think Guy would appreciate that look from you, John. And Mark will show up in a Chiefs hoodie and a Chiefs hat like he does, or maybe Royals.
Yeah, depending on the day.
Sure.
But not sporting because you want the head coach fired.
Yeah, if they fire him, maybe I'll wear a sporting hoodie or something.
What about your current gear?
I'll wear a current hat, maybe.
Maybe a current, I don't know. You don't look good in teal, Mark. It's not your color. Huh. Then again, I don't know who does have the color teal high on their list.
Say who looks good. Not a lot of us.
So that's coming up, and it's the only major event. We don't have any Politics in the Pints planned anytime soon, so this is the big event that we've got here, at least for the first half of the year. So go to KCMOTalkRadio.com. Tickets will go on sale later this week. And remember, you're getting dinner out of this deal. You're getting complimentary drinks out of this. You got the pint glass from Boulevard. You're getting the photo with Guy, and you're getting the program. So that is where you will find all the tickets and information at KCMOTalkRadio.com. Check it out there. They will go on sale later this week. In the meantime, I saw this. Snow White continues to be a disaster for Disney at the box office. Speaking of entertainment, my gosh, Snow White, the numbers are in. For week 2, did just $14 million domestically in its second weekend. That is a 66% decline from the opening weekend. And this movie is on its way to losing hundreds of millions of dollars. The film has now just earned $67 million domestically, $143 million worldwide, according to a new report from Variety. Now, that would be solid for a lot of films. It's not a good job by Disney, who now is expected to lose upwards of, give or take, from what I'm seeing, $250 million on this movie. Now, I know, Mark, your daughters are like prime age for Snow White. Mine are too, but mine are younger, so they don't know about Snow White unless, of course, I tell them about the new Snow White movie. But your daughters are a bit older, and they didn't even know there was a new Snow White movie.
Yeah, it was interesting. I saw the lady that plays Snow White pop up on a YouTube video, was singing a song, and I said, hey, you know who that is? And my middle daughter, Riley, didn't know who it was. So, yeah, I was like, you guys don't know about the new Snow White? And neither my 12-year-old or 9-year-old knew about the new Snow White, which I found very interesting.
You would think that they would be getting bombarded with different ads. You know, I know they're not on, like, phones all day, but they would be getting some targeted ads, or at least it might come up in the classroom, right, where kids would be like, hey, did you see the new Snow White? Mom and Dad took me to see Snow White.
I don't think that's going on.
Well, not around here. And this is, of course, driven by Rachel Zegler, who plays Snow White, who had some very controversial political comments in the last few months. And that caused much of conservative America to turn on her. John, what are you laughing at?
Well, there were some politicals. There were some that were just dumb.
Well, yes.
Like, she didn't even like the story. I don't know why she went out for the part.
Yeah, that's right. She ripped on Snow White and the whole story.
Waiting for a man.
Yeah.
No, you know.
Yeah, like, why'd you go for it?
Yeah, why'd you?
Well, because it pays well, that's right.
I suppose.
Yeah, that's why.
Well, that makes her... Never mind.
No, well, she did go on to say about Trump that may Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace. She eventually apologized for those statements, but this is that fine line. Like, you're allowed to, I guess, feel that way. I think it's a pretty horrible way to feel about somebody who voted differently from you, but you're allowed to feel that way. But this is where Disney also has a job to say, wait, you are about to be the face of one of our largest franchises, Snow White. The people that we want to take their kids to these movies are going to be, obviously, people with young children, parents. Parents in America in 2025 are overwhelmingly more likely to lean to the right than they are to lean to the left. The base of those who would agree with Rachel Zegler's comments are single, under 30, with blue hair and 4 PhDs, or they're over 55, might still have blue hair, more likely to have white hair, but don't have kids anyway who are little, who are going to be going to the movies, or they're going to be taking to the movies, or have the ability to use their discretionary income to pick and choose what they want to spend it on. Rachel Zegler's political comments killed this movie. Let's be clear. And when the person that you are trying to get to spend their money on your product is more likely to be the person that you have insulted, that the main character has insulted, you've got yourself in a world of hurt. And that's exactly what Rachel Zegler did. And frankly, if Disney had any stones, any backbone whatsoever, there would be some ramifications for this and against Rachel Zegler, so it doesn't happen again. But instead, what it seems like they're going to do is chalk this one up to a big loss, whistle past the graveyard, and say, well, I hope we learned a lesson here. If I'm Disney, I'm putting this in my contracts for my big stars. You make any kind of political comment like this, guess what? That big check we're writing to you, that ain't happening anymore.
It's a lesson writ large for Hollywood in general. We've had controversies over Wicked and the poster and the green face and blah, 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 you know. We've had people say, I don't need Trump people to go see my movie. Mm-hmm. And they don't, and it disappears.
And then no one goes to watch it. But when you're Snow White, man, it is hard to screw up not making money for Snow White. But somehow, Disney and Rachel Zegler, with the big assist, managed to do it. Way to go, everybody. Way to go. Meantime, back here in Kansas City, you got to hear from some of these Tesla protesters. They're a doozy. Next. God bless our local TV reporters. They got to go out there and they got to get dumber talking to these people at these protests. It really is a sad deal for them. Oh, my goodness. They do not get paid enough to go out there on a Saturday afternoon and stand there on State Line Road and talk to these people about why they're protesting in front of a Tesla dealership.
Never forgave her for it, but Joan Rivers made the point that the America gets dumber the more you go into the middle, with Kansas City being the apex.
Well, we lived up to it on Saturday.
Yeah, there you go.
We got our the dumb were out and about on Saturday afternoon. The weather was great, so they crawled out of their holes, put on their masks, and protested along State Line Road, and also had a little march downtown against Trump and Elon. But Channel 9, KMBC, was right there in the thick of it on Saturday, and here is what it sounded like.
I think there's a lot going on that is not correct. It's not constitutional.
I disapprove of Elon Musk having the role he has in government.
The Kansas City protests, one of more than 200 nationwide, all targeting Tesla dealerships.
Elon Musk has an unelected influence on this country.
He should not be there in D.C. doing the things that he's doing.
He's just firing people to fire people. And a lot of those people are veterans.
Some of the protesters on Saturday say they sold their Tesla.
I owned a Tesla from 2020 till last month.
I drove around one day and I didn't want to be in a symbol of what the government is representing.
You just give them the power and let them do what they want to do. I don't appreciate that.
Man, I don't know who those people are. I'm just going to call them Triggered 1, Triggered 2, Triggered 3, and Triggered 4, since we heard from 4 voices there. So Triggered 1 goes on the note that they don't think that Elon Musk should have the role that he has. Well, guess what? Donald Trump campaigned with Elon Musk. It was pretty evident he was going to have a role like this. And then the American people voted for it. They voted for it when it comes to the popular vote. They voted for it when it comes to winning 7 out of 7 on swing states. They voted for Elon Musk having maybe not this role in particular, but a role of this ilk. And then Trigger number 2 goes on the note that they don't think Elon should have this influence. I didn't see their protests around George Soros the last few years. Maybe you did and I missed them. But when George Soros was going out there and buying radio stations and radio groups like he did with some of the competitors here in Kansas City, I didn't see a big freak out from these people worried about political influence when Soros is buying the majority stake of one of the largest radio groups in America that also operates a bunch of radio stations in Kansas City. I didn't see their protests downtown. I didn't see their protests outside of the Odyssey building over there in Mission. I didn't see any of that. Now, I could have missed it. I don't get to every news story in this town, but I'm pretty sure that's one that I would have at some point seen or come across. But it didn't happen. So what they really mean is they don't like Elon's influence because they don't like what he's doing. They don't actually care about influence. They don't care about somebody who's unelected having power over politicians. They don't care about that one bit. They care about this because it's Elon. And then we'll go to trigger number 3 there. That guy said he sold his Tesla. Not all heroes wear capes. Gosh, what a legend. He got rid of his Tesla. I wonder if he's going to be like Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona, who sold his Tesla and then bought himself a gas-guzzling Tahoe, which is what he said he always wanted anyway. So you're telling me you were just driving the Tesla to what? Fit in? Appear sufficiently woke until it was no longer woke to drive a Tesla because of Elon Musk? Like, I'm just trying to make sense of it. So I wonder if that guy bought himself a gas guzzler, air quotes, after he sold his Tesla.
Jeez, virtue signaling can be expensive in this economy, can't it?
Oh, see, that's the beauty of virtue signaling, though, right?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. You do it to appease certain people, and then once it's no longer cool to do it, you really don't have to justify why you're not doing it anymore. You just kind of can go about your day, and your side is never going to call you out over the nonsense and BS. You just keep on going, baby. It's great.
It goes the way of Pogs and Tamagotchi pets and Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And
Pokemon card.
Yep.
Although
those are back.
They're back.
Yeah, well, they're huge.
My daughter broke them out the other day. I forgot she got like 3 Pokemon cards from someone on Halloween. Now, if you're giving out Pokemon cards, I'm sorry. You got a problem.
There may be a sign in the front yard somewhere.
But she's like, who's this one? I'm like, oh, that's Pikachu. Wow, take me back to my youth in the late 90s here.
Exactly.
It's getting weird. But it's like, man, these people don't realize how absurd they sound. I got to imagine these TV reporters show up on the side of State Line Road on Saturday, and they're like, hey, who wants to do an interview? Me. I want to be on TV. Me. And they're fighting to get in line. And the reporter's like, oh, gosh.
Oh, yeah, it's like American Idol, right? They're doing their cheers and chants. And okay, you're in.
Here's the problem. They all think they're Carrie Underwood, but they're all William Young, right? She bangs. Give me a little William Young, would you, Mark, into the break, please?
Oh, yeah.
All right, set that up for me. I need that to feel good on a Monday. But yes, as the texter says here, 5,000, a bunch of useful idiots. That is true. The problem is, the biggest problem is usually a useful idiot has some type of knowledge that they're being used as a useful idiot. I don't think these people have any clue that they're being used as useful idiots. And here's part 2 of this report from Channel 9.
It was a group of more than 250 people protesting outside Tesla on State Line Saturday. They say their goal the same as the national goal on this day.
We're just trying to drive down the stock price as much as possible, and then hopefully he'll stop doing what he's doing.
I believe that if Elon starts to suffer enough of the financial consequences, he'll start to reconsider his role in our government.
You shouldn't be able to buy America, and so that's why we're protesting Elon today.
In Kansas City, Alan Shope, KMBC 9 News.
So one guy says there, I guess that would be triggered 5 or 6. I'm not sure which number we're up to at this point. But he goes, I hope that we hurt Tesla to the point where Elon leaves the government. Now, here's the thing. Elon's really the face of Doge. But if Elon leaves tomorrow, Doge is going to continue. As we saw last week on that Bret Baier interview, there are, give or take, about 10 people that are really the ones who are getting their hands. I mean, there's a lot more than that, but there are 10 people right under Elon who sat with him for the interview last week with Bret Baier, who are highly successful individuals, who are the ones who are getting their hands dirty and leading Doge at different levels of government, trying to find the waste, fraud, and abuse and get rid of it. So Elon could leave tomorrow and Doge continues. And that's what I think a lot of these folks also are not understanding.
Let's say it today. Elon will be leaving.
Yes.
Eventually.
Yes, he will go.
So it won't be, we won.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That'll be the story. It's a war of attrition and we wore him down.
Yeah.
No. He's leaving eventually.
And I would say it's just a matter of, is it 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months? That's what we're looking at right now. He's put his timeline, I think he once said it was 12 to 18 months, so maybe it's in the early next year, but it could be as early as this fall. Who knows? I don't know what exactly it's going to look like. I do know this. You cannot, on one hand, also say, man, these Trump tariffs are killing the stock market, and then say, I'm here to protest to drive down Tesla stock. When Tesla is one of the Magnificent Seven stocks, that is a big driver of people's, if they've just got an S&P fund in their 401k, Tesla is going to be a percentage of that. So you can't be like, Trump's killing the stock market with tariffs, but I'm here on the side of State Line Road to drive down Tesla stock to hurt Elon to get him out of the government. You cannot have it both ways. On the text line, Pete, Mark Kelly selling a Tesla and buying a Tahoe is virtue signaling, but Ted Cruz buying a Tesla and posting it on social media is, of course, not virtue signaling. I didn't see Ted do that, but that's also virtue signaling. Yes, that's fair. You're right about that. That is Ted Cruz virtue signaling. I am not going to buy a Cybertruck because I like what Elon Musk is doing with Doge. One, it's $100,000, and two, it's ugly. It looks cool on the inside, but it's ugly on the outside. So I'm not making a decision on buying a car based on what I think Elon is doing for the government, which I do respect and I do like. But I don't make car decisions like that. So, yes, I would agree with you there, Texter. Mm-hmm. I will give it to you that Ted Cruz is also virtue signaling. Now, will you give it to me that Mark Kelly is full of garbage when he's selling his Tesla and buying a Tahoe? Come on now. You know what fascinates me, too, about all this? These protests at these Tesla dealerships, including here on State Line Road, big one on Saturday. The same people that said or are saying, oh, my goodness, you could never fire a federal worker.
How dare you?
They think it's like the most offensive thing that could ever happen. Somebody losing their job, which, hello, welcome to the private sector where it happens on a regular basis, are now making life hell for these Tesla employees who are showing up to work every day, many of whom have had this job probably long before Elon Musk was anything in the Trump administration, which has only been around for 2 months at this point. And they now have to navigate this insanity. You've got people who are showing up to the dealership to get their tires rotated who have to deal with this insanity, many of whom may have voted for Kamala Harris and are just innocent citizens who happen to own a car that these protesters do not like the owner of. And they're saying, oh, we need to be sympathetic to the federal workforce, but we're fine with the idea of treating innocent Americans who have literally done nothing wrong like crap because they own a car of somebody we don't like and or they work for somebody that we don't like because the individual is trying to lead the way on getting rid of $36 trillion in debt and reducing a $2 trillion annual deficit. 913-408-7957. Jeff is on KCMO. What's up, Jeff? Jeff, what's up, brother? How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Heading home today. Hey, this Mark Kelly out here in Arizona, like you guys said, it's all facade. He sold his electric car and bought a gas-powered car. So that tells me that Trump has got fuel down so recently now. You guys can all sell your electric cars, man.
Yeah. You know, Mark, that is Jeff, excuse me. That is a great point about Mark Kelly. It's like in a weird way, he's owning himself, where gas is now a bit cheaper, and he's able to fill up that gas guzzle in Tahoe because gas is down, and he can feel good about filling up that tank once again. So go figure.
Yeah, he got punked. The old guys got punked.
It's well done there, Jeff. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. 913-408-7957. Safe travels back from Arizona. And he mentioned his senator out there, so I don't know if he's technically a resident of that state or our state back here in Kansas. Either way, he's coming back to plenty of drama here. So you can say goodbye to Mark Kelly and say hello to Laura Kelly, I guess. No relation, I will add. Just happen to have that same last name. Now, the KCTV5 package, if you haven't heard this from over the weekend, here it is.
And the anti-Elon Musk protests continue across the country today, including another one here in Kansas City. This is a look at this afternoon's Tesla takedown rally. Protesters at this rally are concerned about Musk's involvement in the Trump administration's efforts to downsize the federal government.
I'm extremely worried. I'm extremely worried about what's happening in our country. I think we have months, not years, to save what's our democracy. And the fact that I see it here, this many people, is inspiring.
He's very inspired. It's funny, too, how all the people who are standing there on the side of State Line Road, when people drive by and they honk, they assume the honkers are on their side. If I had driven by State Line Road, let's say I was going to get a sandwich from my buddy Jasper there on State Line Road, and I happened to drive past that Tesla dealership right up the road, I might have honked. Now, I wouldn't have been rude. I wouldn't have, given him the one-finger salute. I wouldn't do such a thing. That would not be nice of me.
Such a nice man.
So I wouldn't do that. But I might honk. And if they assumed that my honk was in support, well, that would be a misinterpretation of my honk. So this notion that all the folks honking are like, yeah, you guys are awesome, standing there at the side of the road in front of a Tesla dealership, I'd just be wondering which one's going to try to burn down a Cybertruck tonight. And we still don't have any information on who did that a couple of weeks ago. And you know that that's being investigated now by the FBI and the ATF. That is not being handled or not being led, I should say, by KCPD, John.
I think it was the guy that left the Coke in the White House. Like, are we going to find out who leaked the...
yeah, who's coming first?
Yeah.
Who is going to be found first? The Coke in the White House guy or a gal, I suppose. Although, pretty confident it's one of the guys, I'm just going to say.
Come on, man. We had the Roe Wade leak. I don't know if we found that one out.
We haven't found out that person either. And also, we're waiting to find out who the Tesla dealer, Cybertruck firelighter is, who ran across the street 2 weeks ago. We don't have that person, so we are waiting on that as well. 913-408-7957. Pete, I have not heard Stephen Colbert crowing about his Tesla recently. Oh, Colbert's got to be selling that thing any minute, right? There is not a chance that Stephen Colbert is waking up every morning and stepping foot into his Tesla. There is no way. Not a chance.
Putting the bumper sticker over it that says, I hate Elon or whatever.
Yeah, well, that might be him. You're right about that. That might very well be Stephen Colbert. That guy is so far lost. There is not a chance that he's still doing that. See, I don't think he would put the sticker on there because he would feel so icky driving that thing. He just couldn't do it anymore. Travis, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the people who protest Elon. I'd like to go see them do that in a Middle Eastern country and see how well that goes for them. They disrespect the most American country, the most American company we have, and somebody with the highest IQ. These people probably don't even have an IQ a half of what Elon does. And he's doing this to save America. And if that guy who thinks we're losing democracy, go find out what it looks like in North Korea. Go find out in Palestine. Go find out in Eastern countries, and you'll see how great you have it here.
Yeah,
that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Travis. Thank you, my man. It's something that they lose sight of far too frequently. You're right about that. 913-408-7957. Trust me, we are not in danger of any new Mensa members coming out of that protest on Saturday. I promise you that much.